Hello everyone and welcome to the Bharat Pulse News Network. In today's interview, we have the honor of interviewing Captain Snehal Potey, a distinguished Indian Navy veteran who has served in the 22nd Killer Squadron, which is a critical asset of the Indian Navy for defense against Pakistan on the western coast. The recent geopolitical tensions, especially the conflict between Israel, Iran, Hamas, and Hezbollah, has multiple implications on India. It is not just the surging oil prices, but also some lessons to be taken from this conflict. Similarly, we are also going to discuss the latest developments of the Russia-Ukraine war and the CPEC collaboration between China and Pakistan and what implications it has on India. So stay tuned and watch the entire interview. We hope the young audience for whom we are targeting this interview will enjoy the information which is being dispensed as opposed to all the rhetoric and propaganda you see on the mainstream media. Our intention here is to clear the clutter, remove the noise, and present plain facts. We want our audience to gain some useful information by the time this interview ends. So stay tuned. So thank you, sir. Welcome so much for joining us on this show. So first, we'll discuss about the Russia and Ukraine conflict. This particular conflict is a lot on the mind of our young viewers because India and Russia's diplomatic and defense ties are very well known, and it has been, a hot topic of discussion since the war has started. Many of our young viewers are wondering, I mean, the way Russia is performing in this war, and India being one of the biggest procurer of defense equipment from Russia, they're wondering, I mean, why is Russia not doing so well?
There are multiple reasons. Russian technology is very old. They have not kept up with the technological advancement that the Western and the European weapon manufacturers have done. Tactically, they have a problem. They haven't seen any major conflict since Afghan invasion, and there has been a long gap. Ukraine is well supported by the East, Europe, and the US. And the quagmire that has happened is basically morale of the Russian army, the technology that is taken toll, and now they have entered in a state of stalemate. Nothing much is happening. 2 years have passed. Both sides are making claims. Russians have taken control of certain territory of Ukraine and unlikely to be reversed. This has been going on since the takeover of Crimea. So, if you ask me specific answer to why Russians are not doing so well, well, morale of their armed forces, technology, they have the quantity and the mass, but not the quality. So they are persistent, and yes, at the same time, you must give credit to Ukraine that they underestimated the resistance put up by Ukraine. For example, they have consistently targeted their power structure, their railway infrastructure, but Ukrainians have genuinely made up for all the losses. There are the power is still available in majority of the Ukrainian territory, and the configuration of the nuclear power plants has not really resulted in the damage because they are the main power supply utility to the Ukrainian households. So that way, there are multiple reasons. So I hope I answered that.
Yes, sir. One of the aligned question to this is one of our viewer is wondering that is India is facing a dual threat on two sides of the borders, one from Pakistan, one from China. So, in event of such a conflict arising, tomorrow, what lessons can India learn from Russia, and be well prepared for such a conflict in future?
Too many lessons. In fact, world over, the professional armed forces continue to update their strategy, their equipment, training, philosophy based on what they see around. And more so for India because we are so much dependent on Russian technology. Though we have done miracles with that, even the so-called not so update technology, for example, 71 or the missile boards that were used were not meant to be for that kind of attack. But we told them, we took them closer, and surprised the world. So those kind of things. But we should not be dependent on the improvisation. We need that technology in the first place. So the question that what we learn from this is yes, we should not be totally dependent on Russia. 85% of the army is dependent on tanks are Russian in Indian army. It worries me. Most of the fleet that has been in the Indian Navy is based on the Russian technology. But here we are coming out. Indian Navy is far ahead of as far as getting out of the Soviet influence. But Indian Army is badly stuck. Air Force moderately stuck. Government's plans are now for diversification of the equipment. Rafale is one of the prime example. Are examples of shipbuilding in India, but again in Scorpion submarines which are coming from the European waters. So we are diversifying, but still today we are completely dependent on Russia for nuclear submarines, their nuclear reactors, nuclear fuel, technology, maintenance support in future for decades to come. So we are in badly stuck position. So indigenization, improvisation, and diversification of our equipment is the necessity. We should not be totally dependent on Russia, but unfortunately, there's a fact as on today, and nobody can deny it. And that is where India will have to be on the right side of the Russia for years to come.
So you spoke about the tanks. One of our viewer has asked this specific question: is the T-90 tank, which India recently has rolled out a modified, in-house version called T-90 Bhishma. This T-90 tank was deployed by Russia in the Ukraine conflict, and there are reports, on CNN and other news outlets that from far lesser equipment and lesser capability equipment, Ukraine has managed to destroy those T-90 tanks. So, and our neighbors obviously would have a similar, would be learning from this conflict as well. So, how exactly you see, India going forward with the T-90 Bhishma tanks?
See, today anti-tank warfare is basically dependent on the portable anti-tank missiles. It is not the Ukrainian tanks have destroyed the Russian tanks. It is the European and the US support and the UK particularly, those who have weapons which are portable, very effective anti-tank equipment. That tank warfare in that area, it is a plain. It's a plains of that Ukraine and Russian border. It's a riverine place, so tanks get bogged down. Weather plays a lot of play in this because Russian tanks are good in, during the winters because of the hard surface. But same thing, the moment that starts melting, it becomes a quagmire. And there are lessons in the world right from the World War where tanks have met their Waterloo very badly. So there is a problem as far as the tactical policy of Russians. They may have messed it up. So tank losses of the Russians are more to do with the tactical their policy, also the equipment, and very well support from the Western allies to Ukraine. That has been the game changer as far as the tanks are concerned. That is one of the reasons when the tanks reached on the outskirts of Kiev, and there was a mayhem. They simply shot those tanks down, and what you probably Russians thought that they will be next day in Kiev sitting in the capital, and Zelensky will be killed. That was only their dream, which could have never practically brutalized. So T-90 tanks have a problem. and we are in trouble for it. Our tanks need major overhaul, and yes, we are lagging. We must accept that there is a problem.
So you very well articulated, how Russia underestimated Ukraine. I mean, is it quite possible that had there not been any interference from the West and the Europe, it would have been an easy takeover for Russia. They would have met their objectives quite easily.
You mean to say Ukraine on its own?
Yeah, on its own.
Ukraine on its own is nothing. Ukraine on its own is a very small army, very moderate weapons, which are actually the leftovers of the Soviet times. Ukraine has taken their security for granted because Ukraine probably always felt that Europe and US will come to their help, but and at the same time they tried to play with fire by trying to join NATO, which are certain red lines. Like for example, I'll give a very close example. If Chinese tomorrow Sri Lanka wants to have some tie-up with Chinese, what will be your reaction? Maldives wanted to just allow some ship to enter. There was so much anger in India. The same logic. Russia thinks Ukraine is there in the area of influence, and that chap trying to join NATO is something a red line. So Russia had to act. So it was, and yes, daredevilry and some miscalculations on Russian part. But if you ask me the specific reason, the red lines were crossed. That is the reason Russia-Ukraine conflict has arisen.
So, in alignment of this particular discussion, some of our young viewers are wondering, just like how Ukraine was saved by NATO, there is, always, the Indian diplomats and the bureaucracies is boasting of how, apolitical we are on the international scene. So tomorrow, if a conflict arises where we are, facing a dual threat, who exactly will come and side with India if India doesn't side with anyone else?
In a conventional sense, your army is going into Himalayas and Americans are going on LOC is something which is silly to think. Nobody is going to come to your help. Nobody is going to come to your help. Yes, they will support you, they will make noise for you, they may materially support you, they may take certain measures, say for example, blockade of Malacca Strait, but they will not attack China on behalf of India simply because you are being attacked or your territory is under threat or the Russian Navy is bombarding your Andaman Islands. No, it is not going to happen. You are on your own.
So you think
This so you can have diplomatic measures and diplomatic your diplomacy should save you a lot of other troubles. For example, your fuel supplies should not be interrupted. Your ammunition supply should not be interrupted. If there are certain technologies, they can covertly support you by, like, for example, sharing intelligence, sharing technology. What they are doing in, say, for example, anti-tank missiles to Ukraine. Those kind of things. Of course, they are also, very important. But on this two-front war, nobody will come to your materially, support and participate in your conflict. No, that is not the case.
So a young audience is wondering, is this the right way forward, having a neutral approach to international diplomacy, not taking sides? Because today, if you don't side with anyone, tomorrow nobody is going to side with you.
National interest is the last frontier of any diplomacy. So there is no question of you siding with at the cost of your national interest. You side overtly or covertly only if there is your national interest is served. Today you buy Russian oil because it serves your purpose. Your population will otherwise pay for the price for it. So when you say that neutrality has a dimension of national interest. Neutrality alone is not the principle. National interest is the principle. Even if it shows that you are siding with someone, you have to do it openly. That is again your national interest. So there is nothing called neutrality in international diplomacy these days.
I would say so far this has worked for India quite well.
It is only the notional neutrality that you can. India's interest lies with Quad, for example. In South China Sea, India is not saying that I am against China or something, but that's the aim. To contain China is the aim. So we are not neutral there.
Right.
As in a conventional sense, you are not neutral. You are very much on the side, Western powers.
Right.
You are part of the Western power. You are part of that grouping. So it is that way is not neutral.
So the next question I will, ask you regarding the Russia-Ukraine conflict is the S-400 air defense system. Now, this system is a lot of popular on our social media. There are videos, there are a lot of sharing happening among the young audience. They're thinking, oh, this is something. S-400 is a game changer for India for defense against China and even Pakistan. But then there is also other side, where this S-400 was deployed in Ukraine, and somehow it did not perform as expected. So now few viewers are wondering, if S-400 is basically the right way forward, or should we be looking at some other alternatives?
It's a difficult choice. S400 is fairly advanced system. It's cheaper. You buy, you get only what you can afford. Iron Dome system or the sling system of Israel is extremely costly. For your information, when Israel fires and you deploys that equipment, each missile, anti-missile is in millions of dollars, and who pays for it? American taxpayer.
Right.
You don't have such luxury.
Right.
So it is the best possible system. And again, S400 is not a standalone system and the only silver bullet. It is part of the missile defense mechanism. So there are anti-tank missiles, there are the S400, and then there are many other systems. So it is not dependent. It is the best thing that you have. In fact, to get S400 itself has been a Herculean task. It has taken ages, years, and sanctions. US didn't want India to buy that. Eventually, US somehow relented, saying that okay, it is India's. Finally, Indians getting better off against Chinese serves American interest. Again, look, this is their national interest, right? That you buy equipment from Russia, who is your arch enemy, serves their national interest,
Right.
against Chinese. So this is that the complicated web of neutrality and international relations.
So you spoke of the Iron Dome. Few weeks back, we saw all these videos on social media. Largely being shared up by the young audience of all these Iranian missiles, passing through the Iron Dome, and some of them have landed in within the Israel territory. So a lot of people are wondering, what exactly happened to the Iron Dome, when Iran attacked, and even recently Hezbollah has managed to bypass Iron Dome.
I repeat, there is no perfect, ideal missile defense anywhere in the world. The technology is like the chore police. They keep on catching on, each other. Today, your missile defense scores one notch with some technological development. Tomorrow, you find you do some technological improvement to that missile so that it is not detected. You probably go for hypersonic, go for a higher speed. Any system can be overwhelmed if it can target, say, if it can say target 80 incoming missiles and you fire say 100, few of them are likely to pass through, and this is what happens. So I am not surprised that, but it has the better part is what you should read out of the technology is that it has saved Israel. It has saved Israel. The damage has been minimal, and that's the acceptable cost of damage when you venture into such life and death situations. Few missiles falling here and there is an acceptable cost. So what is your acceptable cost vis-a-vis cost of your deployment? Today S400 will save you probably so many cities, metros, but still maybe Ludhiana or Patia may get through some missiles will get through to such tier 2, tier 3 cities. So is that an acceptable damage? Is it inevitable? Yes, it is inevitable. It will happen. So S-400 is not the best of the system. It's not the silver bullet, and it's not the only option against the missile defense. So yeah, it's part of the overall system.
So one of the young viewer has asked one question is that apart from the hypersonic and the cruise missiles, the Iranians also use drones. Now, drones is a very latest warfare technique, and there is basically no anti-drone system currently available. But recently, we have read in the news that India shot down one Chinese drone using a jet aircraft. So, is India fully capable of handling such drone attacks as on date?
Drones have a limited utility. It is coming out like drone swarms, because limitations of the drones are the one is the speed, very limited speed, ranges are limited, height is limited, but it can also pass through the system. As far as you are referring to the Indian Air Force shooting down a Chinese balloon, it was a simulated thing. It was not Chinese. It was a simulated exercise. That if such a thing happens, will you be able to? No, because you have to go at that 50,000 feet, 55,000 feet. No weapons have been tested, really tested, in a warlike situation. So it was a simulated exercise, and it has been successful against the drone. So therefore, the strength of the drone lies in numbers. They're cheap to manufacture, unpredictable, but at the same time, limitations, as I said, is the range is limited. So it is an evolving technology. It has been very effectively used in Azerbaijan-Armenia war. In fact, it has been a deciding factor as far as Azerbaijan is concerned, because Armenian armed forces are completely lacking any capability. Drones have been effectively used by Ukraine against Russian targets, because there is no proven defense against element of surprise, that you launch a drone, say for example you go closer and then you launch the drones. It's a evolving technology. So your basic question remains, is there a effective technology against drones? Yes, attempts are being made, but then it is an evolving situation. As of now, no. Answer is no.
So, India currently is developing a new surface-to-air missile system called Barak 8 with help of Israel, which basically will be deployed mostly in the sea through Indian Navy vessels. How do you think this is a game changer? Because a lot of defense experts, while talking, they say that yes, our army is the main element while battling these two enemies, but it is the navy and the air force which are the two game changers. So, if Indian Navy is deployed by Barakat, how much of an impact it will have?
Barak is already deployed for at least more than 10 years now. It is basically an anti, ship missile defense system. It's like missiles are attacking, say, flotilla, the aircraft carrier and the ships. Barak is supposed to be the close quarter, anti-missile defense system, and it is Israelis have developed it. It's primarily an Israeli system. Indians have been the bulk purchasers of it. Air Force and Navy are the game changers, because they are the force multipliers, because they are the most fertile. But you cannot deny the dominance of army as far as boots on the grounds are concerned. So everyone has a role to play. So nobody is taking over anybody's domain in the first place. They are supposed to be complementary each other, and government has been actively saying that is it theater command. That means there will be a commander in chief who will have air assets, marine assets, and even the land assets under one commander in chief. So it is like three ingredients coming together to make the beautiful dish. That's how I will describe it, and it's not spoiling of each other's. Yeah. And one of the Rafale M, for example, Rafale Marine, they will be serviced in probably in Ambala in the Air Force facility. So that is optimization of cost, optimization of technology. Tomorrow, that Rafale M does not have to be deployed only in the marine environment. It can probably fight wars in Himalayas. naval PATI has been patrolling Himalayas during the Chinese conflict, and it regularly does intelligence missions around. So there is nothing called white color, armed force of the army, or there is a green color only the land fighting force, or the blues in the sky. They are all integrated. They are supposed to be together, and that is the idea.
So you spoke, how the Israeli air defense system was overwhelmed, and that is one trick, which now Iran possibly has, given kind of a hint to our two neighbors. As on date, I don't think India is fairly equipped, and might be easily overwhelmed by, such a similar attack. What do you think should be done immediately to remedy that situation?
Pakistan does not have the overwhelming facility to, because there is something called MAD, mutually assured destruction. For every missile or every attack or every projectile that is coming from Pakistan, India can definitely send in two for each one. So there is a number superiority as far as Pakistanis are concerned. Pakistani economy, Pakistani society is so fragmented. There are a lot of trouble happening in Pakistan. Pakistan is on the edge, and Pakistan is in no position to take this panga, if I can call it, with India in the near future. So that has been neutralized by preparedness over a period of time. So Pakistan should be discounted. That is the reason. That is the reason Pakistan is desperate to create, trouble in Kashmir, Punjab, in a low-tech war, in a hybrid war, where it cannot be caught, but at the same time it can keep causing trouble, and trying to shackle Indian armed forces to bog them down by these cheapest methods. So Pakistan doesn't have the strategic or the tactical strength to take on India. No.
So now, we have spoken about, Pakistan, we have spoken about China. What do you think, about the other neighboring countries and our defense ties? That is, earlier in the interview, you spoke about, how the current president won the election by giving the slogan India out. Basically, he wanted the Indian army and the Indian soldiers out of Maldives. So, what do you think of that situation and how is it evolving?
I don't think you should take that rhetoric very seriously. There are politicians of all kind. Politicians, will say something in public and do something else. The same gentleman was in India the other day and took line of credit, extended line of credit. They are facing financial trouble, and they very well know that only India can help. And India has a record of clean help. India has not strangulated like Chinese have done or to put them in a debt trap. So that credibility, that is the reason Indian public should not get excited over such rhetoric. This relationship goes back decades, and it is continued. It will continue for decades to come. One political party, one political rhetoric saying India out or this or that does not really make a difference. We have seen that thing in Sri Lanka. We have seen that in Bangladesh. We have seen that kind of a thing in even in Pakistan when Nawaz Sharif wanted to mend his ways with India. It didn't happen. So politicians come and go, national interest stays, and the record of Indian philosophy of helping the neighbor is beyond doubt, because it has proven India has never got in any sticky situation. Possibly, exception being LTTE, but then again India learned its lesson and turned against LTTE and paid the price for it. So it was a misadventure of Indian government to support LTT in the first place and then take on LTT eventually, and causing so much of loss to the Indian armed forces. So lesson learned is clean philosophy helps. So be transparent, be clean, and that has been our historical behavior with the neighbors. if you don't do any mischief, I'm sure they will realize in time. Politicians of all kind, Indian politicians are no less. Like, immediately after that rhetoric, don't go to Maldives, Lakshadweep is alternate, and that kind of thing started. Even politicians said that Maldives can take objection to that also, but that's not the case. Governments do not go by such rhetoric. They have to have that cool mind and patience.
So one such rhetoric is the Chinese and Pakistani collaboration on the CPEC. Recently, I mean, China has almost 30,000 workers currently in Pakistan for this collaboration and recent attacks on those workers. Now, China is wondering that if they should deploy their armed forces in Pakistan. How do you think India is going to perceive that deployment, and how do you think we should react to it?
Okay, first and foremost, CPEC is in the pipeline for now more than 20 years, 15 to 20 years, certainly. It has seen some development as far as the Karakoram highway and the major roads are concerned. So there has been a progress, but at the same time, what they dreamt of, nothing has taken off. Like Godar port started with the Karwar, is about 20 years now. Karwar has already gone to a stage where it will become the marine asset headquarters of the Indian Navy. And Gwadar has only one jetty and probably two rusting cranes. So it has not taken because there is a lot of resistance in Balochistan. China is really worried about this backlash coming from the non-state actors in Pakistan against the Chinese, but China badly needs them. Pakistan badly needs that because China feels that Malacca Strait or other, as I said in the past, Quad can throttle them for the energy supplies. Their most of the trade is passing through those waters, and they can be choked, and therefore they need their alternate thing from Gwadar to Xinjiang. Chinese deployment of armed forces for protection of their assets in Pakistan, I don't really see that possibility.
Sir, we have
And in
discussed.
any case, India doesn't have any leverage even if they decide to do it because Pakistani army contingents are in Pakistani territory, the POK territory, not Pakistani territory, Pak occupied Kashmir, the Indian territory. They are already operating in certain parts of the Karakoram, and India has strongly objected to that because that's a violation of Indian sovereignty as far as POK operating in POK is concerned. But India doesn't have leverage. So, answer to that question whether China will deploy their armed forces and take casualties, I don't think so. It will not be welcomed by Pakistani society also. Pakistani army may not be comfortable with that idea, and lastly, India doesn't. If China decides and Pakistan allows it, India doesn't have any leverage.
So we have discussed a lot about defense. One thing which I personally know about your life in the Indian Navy is that you have been commended twice by the Indian Navy, which is a rare honor. With the latest recognition was as a COVID warrior, which has happened a couple of years back. Looking back at the COVID and the defense forces, how they helped the country to stop it at the very first entrance, and how we all recovered from it. How do you see, what was your experience throughout that entire journey?
It's something which I never expected in my life, that I'll be locked down in my own cantonment and I'll lock up all my officers and jawans in one place. Something which we heard only in the history books, that such pandemic happened, and so it was a very extremely challenging thing. It was something new that was coming into this world, and there was no standard operating procedure. There was no book. There was no rule, or there was no past event where you could replicate. So it was everything we learned on the job. If you look back now, it was hardly COVID was not a life-threatening thing. But when it started, when it's in the first wave and the second wave, when that virus was new and there was no effective treatment and so many casualties happened. I'm happy that in the first and second wave there was not a single case among my community, and we replicate our procedures and policies were replicated by the civilian administration. Happy that I contributed. Yes, it was risky. I had to face a lot of backlash from the local population, that they said that you are getting these people here and trying to kill us by. They were actually not positive. They tested negative and they were brought back. They were only for the isolation, and they are being kept in the safe custody of Indian Navy. But amongst our own civilian citizens coming returning from lockdown and miserable conditions, if we are not taking care of them, who will take care of it? So therefore, against all the resistance and against political backlash in and around the cantonment, we took care of them, and happy that it happened. When they went back to Kashmir, they used to call me once in a while, and always used to say that if we knew and our armed forces are like this, there would probably be now much better days for Kashmiris in India. And yeah, that's happiness, and that's what the job of the armed forces is.
So I mean, it's. I was wondering that this question is basically from me. Whenever something new happens or a calamity is about to happen, the bureaucratic establishment, passes on the baton to the defense. It's like whenever in terms of cricket, when you see a green pitch happening, the openers are always thinking who is going to take the first ball. So in this case, they just hand you the bat and say go and bat. So, but and you guys still bat. You score fours. You hit sixes. You score a wonderful century, and you get the team out of trouble. I mean, what exactly prepares the defense establishment so well that you guys are so ready to face such challenges?
See, the philosophy of Indian armed forces is to prepare for that worst day. So right from the day you join, you are preparing yourself day in and day out for war. And war is something either you will live or I will live. It is fight to finish. So when that organization's day, everyday philosophy is, how will I survive and how will I kill? You have to muster all your resources. The difference between soldier and a civilian is nothing. Soldier doesn't have two extra arms or maybe one extra limb. It is just the mind and continuous preparation. We do not take shortcuts. Unit is always prepared, and it rehearses that kind of a preparation day in and day out. As far as the civilian organization is concerned, there is a problem. They are not trained for it. Number one, whosoever is trained for it doesn't care for it, and we don't have that culture of, like, for example, I will say Japanese society is far more disaster prepared. Is the best disaster prepared society in the world. So it can be done in India. It can be done in India. It's a socio-political problem. I don't understand why basic firefighting, for example, just basic firefighting is not taught to the school children. Or by 10th standard, by 12th standard, 10 plus 2, when the student comes out, whether a girl or a boy or anyone, should have these basic skills of firefighting, crowd management. Probably COVID has taught you that you should be able to administer oxygen, maybe give a syringe and probably check for blood pressure and those kind of basic things. Every individual, there is no great shake in this. So but we don't have that will. Now if you compare that 18-year-old soldier Agniveer, when he joins, within 6 months he can fire a weapon, he can fight fire, he can play games, he can excel in sports, he knows how to dress, he knows how to speak, and he is a complete man or a woman. within 6 months. So if that can be done by armed forces, I'm sure it can be done in the normal, ordinary civilian environment. There is no great shake in this. But we lack that will to improve skills in life, and we don't teach them the basic life skills. That's all is the only difference between the armed forces and the normal civilian society.
So you have had a wonderful illustrious career in the Indian Navy. Few of our young audience might be wondering after watching this interview, that is, if they wish to join the Navy, what exactly is the basic first steps they should take in their life? That is, those who are still in schools.
If you want to enjoy adventure every day, if you like that kind of a life, it's not easy. It's not easy. I haven't attended a single wedding or any festival or anything in last so many years. You have to miss to gain something, but every day has been nice. As far as you are concerned, just be a just do excel in your academics. Number one, we don't recruit only wrestlers. So your body doesn't have to be extraordinary. You should be a normal fit human being. As far as your eyesight is concerned, you should not have any infirmity as to perform the role in the armed forces. It is not to say that is not welcome or something. We get injured and we get infirmities later on in life, once in a while. So you have to have that attitude to work. It is not free for all what happens in a civilian society. So if you have that attitude, you like that adventure, and you want some fun in life, do join armed forces. As of now, as we speak, there are two lady officers going around the world in a small yacht, and they are at sea. And look what they are getting. They came from somebody. One lady officer came from the IT field, and other one is aeronautical engineer, and what the love for their adventure has taken them to, and I really envy them. I wish I could be part of that crew even today.
Thank you so much for giving us your time and speaking to us. I'm sure our audience is going to love listening to your thoughts, and we hope to again interview some other day. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.